Didn't know a single person. Week 1, science class. It's always science class, right? I'm in science class, don't know anybody, but I have kind of like two dudes next to me that I'm starting to get to know, all right? I think they're my friends. So I stand up to go to the bathroom. One of them reaches over, grabs my pants, pulls them to my ankles, and I'm just there in my SpongeBob boxers. And the entire class, here's how the science class is set up. Maybe it's similar to you in your school. My science class is like a big square where everybody faced in. So I stand up, pants down. Everybody's eyes, boom, right to me. Teacher, right to me. And I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. Reach down to pull my pants up, and I trip over them. I fall backwards, and I hit my head on an AC unit behind me. It's a true story. So I'm on the ground, and then I start bleeding out of my head. And so I'm on the ground in my bikini bottoms, right? Blood coming out. And so one hand is trying to stop the blood. The other hand is pulling my pants up. Everyone is just like, and I'm like, I don't know. I go to the nurse. I was like, can I go to the bathroom? He's like, yes, you can. Run to the bathroom. 5th grade. Very core memory for me, you could tell. Go to the nurse, call my mom, she picks me up, I go get stitches. I know. She even calls, this is also embarrassing, she calls the family of the kid that pants me. I was like, you need to come apologize. I was like, I don't ever want to see that guy again. Comes over to my house, apologizes. But guess what? I went back to school the next day. I really showed them. Look at me now. Well, I share that story. One, it's fun, but also one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite interactions that Jesus has with somebody is during their most embarrassing moment. Not only does he save this person from embarrassment, but he also offers her so much more. And so we're going to dig right in. We find Jesus, it says, early in the morning, back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of the religious law, remember the religious police movement yesterday? The Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. So we have these religious police. They go find this poor woman that had been caught in the act of adultery. Adultery is when you're sleeping with somebody that isn't your husband or wife. So they bring out this woman, they drag her out, probably just wearing a sheet. It says they caught her in the act. And there's this massive crowd just like this, and Jesus is sharing with them. He's talking with them, teaching them. They drag out this woman, and they say this. The religious police say to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" So they drag this woman out to her, and it says the penalty for adultery is stoning. Stoning is when you literally take a stone, a massive rock just like this, probably even bigger, and you throw it at the person until they die. It's a terrible way to die, a terrible way of execution. And so the religious police, they say, Jesus, the penalty for catching someone in adultery is that they get stoned. What do you say? What are you going to say? I think they're trying to trap Jesus here. They're going to say, okay, Jesus, that you think you're so great, you're out there saving people's lives and healing everybody and calling yourself God. If you're really God, this woman was caught in adultery, it says we should stone her. Are you about to carry out an execution and murder this woman in cold blood? Option 1, that happens. Option 2, are you just going to dismiss the fact that she was caught in sin and let her go? Let her run free? What are you going to do? Friends, I think this whole thing was a trap for Jesus. Did you notice who's missing? The man. Last time I checked, takes two to tango, right? So these religious police, they just bring out the woman. I think even the man was in on it too. They're all trying to get Jesus, okay? Because if he carries out this execution, it's illegal. And if he lets this woman go, it's illegal. And so, Jesus having none of it, he kind of recognizes what's up. And Jesus wants none of it. He's seeing that they're disrespecting this woman, and Jesus values everyone. He values each and every person. He's having none of it. So here's what he does. He goes for secret option number 3. It says, Jesus stoops down and begins writing in the sand with his finger. They keep demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, all right, but let any of you that is without sin be the first one to throw a stone. And he stooped down again and wrote in the sand. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left with the woman in the middle of the crowd. I love this. Jesus does the unexpected. He goes for secret option number 3. He bends down and starts writing in the sand. We have no idea what Jesus was writing. We don't even know if he was writing anything. He could have just been drawing. What does matter, though, is that doesn't matter. What does matter is where everyone's eyes in that crowd went. They went to Jesus. They finally went away from the woman. This poor woman that had been dragged out. Everyone's eyes were on her. They all go right to what Jesus is doing. And I think that woman, for the first time, feels this sense of relief, like, oh, finally, the attention's off me and it's on to Jesus. He's so good. He's so good. He's sparing this woman of her embarrassment. But also, did you catch that he spared the accusers of their embarrassment? He even spares them. This is how good Jesus is. He doesn't look at them and say, all right, which one of you is without sin? You, I know what you did, right? You should not be throwing that rock, right? He doesn't do that. He says, if any of you are without sin, go on, throw the first stone. What does he do? He goes back down and writes in the sand. He pulls everyone's attention away from even the accusers. He spares them of their embarrassment. He spares them of them having to carry out an execution and having someone's blood on their hands. He's so good. He's so good. And so, he's just left with him and this woman. So what's he going to do? What's he going to say to her? He says, where are your accusers? Didn't one of them condemn you? She says, no, Lord. And Jesus replies, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Where are your accusers? Not even I condemn you. I love this. Jesus doesn't dismiss the fact that she was in sin. She doesn't say, oh yeah, it's all right. Just don't do it again, He doesn't dismiss the fact that she was caught in sin, but he calls her to a new life. He calls her to live a better life. He says, go and sin no more. Calls her into new life. A life that's no longer trapped by sin. The sin, what is it? It's a pretty heavy word, tricky word. It kind of hits us when we hear it, kind of sharp like a dagger, right? Kind of cuts us right to the heart. Sin. Here's how I best heard sin described. Sin is whenever we put ourselves in the center of our lives and say, God, no thanks. So when we turn our backs to him and say, I got this. I know what's best for me. I am going to be the center of my life. I don't care what you have to say, God. I don't care what you have for me. I know what's best. Did you notice what the middle letter of sin is? I. S-I-N. So whenever we put ourselves in the center of our lives and say, no thanks, God, I got this. Here's what that does. That separates us from God. And this is a disease that we all have. It's an instinct in all of us where we choose not God. It says in the Bible, it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." All of us, myself, your leaders, all of us in this room have this instinct, this disease in us to choose not God. We see this in this story. This woman that was caught in sin, clearly, obviously sinning. We also see it in the righteous people, right? We see it in their anger, in their jealousy, in them trying to trap Jesus. Both parties have sin. They both are choosing not God. They both think that they know what's best. And they're separating themselves from God. They're turning their backs and taking matters into their own hands. So we put ourselves in the center. It's a disease that we all have. A couple years ago, my dad was diagnosed with a disease called ALS. It's Lou Gehrig's disease. I think some of you guys remember the old ice bucket challenge. You remember that? They dump ice on you. Yeah, the internet video. It's wild. They were trying to raise money for ALS because there's currently no cure for ALS. Once you get it, eventually it takes over your body and dies. Here's how ALS works. It attacks your neurons and your cells, and it slowly shuts your body down, slowly over time. It attacks your hands, then your feet, and it shuts your body down until you're in a wheelchair talking through an iPad. It starts to kill every part of you slowly over time. The lifespan for ALS right now is 3 to 5 years. It's a death sentence. When you get it, it slowly over time kills every part of you until you die. And friends, there are many times where I'm with my dad and I'm talking to God and I'm like, God, why is this happening to us? Like, why is this thing, like, how could you possibly diagnose my dad with this disease that's going to kill him? They don't have a cure for it. We know what's going to happen. And I'm reminded, friends, of the unfortunate reality that we live in a very broken world. You see, what happens to our world when we choose to put ourselves in the center, and when others choose to do that, sin enters into our life. And it's entered into this world. It's why our world is so broken. It's why we have our loved ones that get diagnosed with incurable diseases. It's why there's earthquakes and mass shootings and broken relationships and broken families. It's the reason there's so much pain and heartache in this world. It's because we have chosen to not choose God, and it's because others have chosen to not choose God. And eventually, if we do that for long enough, just like ALS, it slowly, over time, kills us. It starts to turn us into people that we were never created to be. If you ever looked into the mirror and you don't even recognize the person looking back at you, it's because we've gotten so used to choosing not God. We've gotten so used to putting ourselves in the middle of our life and saying, no thanks. And if we do that, not only does it separate us from God, it slowly over time will kill us. And so friends, sin takes many forms. It can be the choices we make. It can be the rocks that we throw. Sin can also be the rocks that have been thrown at us, the choices others have made. I think some of us have gotten really good at throwing these. Some of us have gotten really used to being hit by these. The other way sin shows up, obviously we're looking for something. I said yesterday that God is chasing after us, but also we're chasing after God. We just don't know it. We're trying to chase after this. When sin enters our life and breaks us, obviously we want freedom from that. We don't want to be trapped by sin. We don't want to feel like crap. We don't want to recognize that brokenness is in us. So I think there's 4 places that we look to fill that. There's 4 places that we look for freedom and peace from sin. And unfortunately, it always calls us back to sin. I think the first place is perfection. We all some of us, try and be perfect, right? We just try and do the right things. Man, if I could just do everything right and be a good person, then I won't feel the brokenness that I feel. Then I won't feel the pain that I feel. If I can just do good things, then I'm set. We chase after perfection, and it leaves us empty every time. Next, I'd say performance. Whether that's with our grades, or we just try and get good grades, or it's in sports. Let me just be the best at this sport, and then I'm set. Let me just make a lot of money. Let me just perform well in life, get rich and famous, and then I'll be good. And we chase after that, and we're still left empty. Sin can also show up in people. We chase after people. We chase after pleasing them. We just want to be liked, accepted, and loved. Maybe we're feeling the heaviness of sin, and so we chase after finding it in each other, in relationships. Maybe we just wish that our families were a little bit different. We wish our families weren't as broken, and our relationships weren't as broken, and yet they are. The reality is, we live in a broken world. And lastly, we look at it for pleasures. We look to pleasures to try and give us freedom from sin. We try and get that quick high, that drug, that drinking, even nicotine, maybe even porn. We try and get a quick fix and please our bodies to escape the problem of sin. And yet each time we come back to it. We try and say, okay, maybe I'm going to try not to do that stuff anymore, and yet sin keeps pulling us back. We say, yeah, I don't want this. I've tried all this, but we can't put it down. We keep coming back to it, and it traps us. Some of us have gotten so used to carrying this that we don't even know what life is like without it. This weight that's on us, this instinct to choose anything but God. And that's what sin is. It's not only this disease that kills us over time. It's not only the choices that we make. It's not only the choices others have made, but it's also the places that we go to find freedom and satisfaction and purpose that aren't God. Sin. It's whenever we choose not God. That separates us from Him and ultimately kills us. Friends, I share this with you this morning not to make you feel guilty or ashamed, but to give you a proper diagnosis. I want you to know the truth. If my dad didn't know his diagnosis, it wouldn't help him at all. And it's helpful for you to know what you need to be saved from. And the unfortunate reality is that there's nothing that we can do ourselves to fix this. There's no amount of being better, of being a good person. There's no amount of any of this that's going to fix this problem. We can't do it on our own. And so we're trapped in sin. We're trapped in the brokenness. And I know that we all have felt that in our own lives and in this world. However, unlike an incurable disease, there is a cure. God did not leave us hanging. There is hope. But before we get there, and we're going to talk about that tonight, we're going to head back to our cabins and talk about the problem of sin. So let me pray for us. Jesus, thank you for this morning. Lord, would you help me and my friends here today understand the problem of sin? Understand that we are trapped and that we have chosen not you. Lord, be with them in their cabin times, we pray. In your name, amen. Thank you guys so much. Have a great cabin time.